My beloved, listen to the voice that breathed galaxies into place and still whispers your name. I am the one who heard every tear-stained plea rising from hospital rooms, battlefields, lonely apartments, and aching hearts. I did not ignore them. I planted the reply inside you. Yes, you, precisely you, are the living proof that I am attentive, intentional, and unstoppable in love. You wonder why your heartbeat quickens when you see injustice, why compassion stirs when you witness pain, why creativity sparks when you confront lack. That stirring is my signature. I placed it there because the world prayed for relief, and I sent you as my relief wrapped in flesh and breath. Do not shrink from the magnitude of this calling. I have already equipped you with wisdom you have yet to discover and strength that will surprise you the moment you use it. My light inside you is not a fragile candle threatened by the wind. It is a sunrise that drives out night wherever you dare to stand. Move forward, not because you are flawless, but because I am faithful. When you speak encouragement, I amplify it. When you extend generosity, I multiply it. When you forgive, I heal. Together we will write new stories where despair once lived. I do not ask you to answer every problem, only to answer the one I placed within your reach. Feed the neighbor, mentor the child, design the solution, compose the song, cast the vote, start the prayer. As you act, you will feel the rhythm of heaven beating in time with your own pulse. And know this, nothing will be wasted. Even your past wounds shall become medicine in my hands. The comfort you received will overflow through you to others who still wait for dawn. So rise, my answered prayer. Stand up in boardrooms and classrooms, on sidewalks and stages, in kitchens and courtrooms. Let the earth feel the weight of your yes. Let the darkness feel the heat of your hope. Let every watching soul realize that I, the Lord, both hear and respond. For I have sent you, fully loved, fully backed, fully empowered, to be the answer they asked of me. I have spoken, and so it shall be. Each person is my living answer to the cries of the world. Long before you inhaled your first breath, multitudes were exhaling desperate petitions that reached my throne like incense. A single mother begged for a mentor for her son. A refugee family pleaded for safe harbor. A weary teacher asked for someone who would innovate, inspire, and lift the heavy yoke of ignorance. The prayers converged, and I, the weaver of times and destinies, began threading them into the fabric of your existence. Your temperament, talents, even the zip code of your upbringing are not random. They are coordinates on a divine map, guiding you toward the needs you were born to meet. That flicker of indignation you feel when you encounter bullying, that surge of delight when you solve a complex problem, the tear you cannot stifle when you hear certain stories. These are coded instructions revealing where you fit as an answer. You may think your ordinary routines are insignificant, yet every morning you wake up, someone's unanswered prayer inches closer to fulfillment. When you choose patience with a difficult coworker, you become the calm that anxious loved ones begged me to send. When you tutor a struggling student after hours, you embody the hope his parents whispered for at night. Even setbacks are repurposed. The grief you survived sharpens your empathy, enabling you to detect silent pain that others overlook. In those moments when you doubt your capacity, remember that I do not gamble with destinies. I vetted you thoroughly against the weight of the assignments I intended, embedding resilience for every resistance, joy for every journey, and revelation for every roadblock. Your life is not a standalone story. It is an intersection where heaven's resources meet earth's requests. To decline your role would be to leave a chapter unwritten, a cure undiscovered, a melody unsung. But when you accept it, when you walk into a room knowing you carry an antidote, you fulfill a promise I made to hearts that may never know your name, but will feel your impact. Therefore, lift your eyes from your own limitations and look instead at the faces I have destined you to bless. Hear their silent prayers echoing in your spirit, urging you onward. Every step you take in love, every risk you embrace in faith, every barrier you dismantle in justice is me answering through you, declaring to creation that none who cry to me are ignored. This is the holy partnership for which you were designed, and in embracing it you will find both my pleasure and your deepest peace. Live, therefore, as my embodied yes. I, the author of your heartbeat, did not form you with a template from a factory line. I sculpted you with an artist's obsession for detail. I pressed potential into the ridges of your fingerprints and tucked callings into the cadence of your laugh. Before you opened your eyes to daylight, I foresaw the neighborhoods you would walk, the industries you would influence, the sorrows you would soothe. I measured those future moments and then matched them with precise gifts, some loud and dazzling, others quiet and subtle, so that nothing you encounter would outsize the grace I buried inside you. You wonder why certain tasks feel effortless while others drain you. That ease is my handwriting, guiding you toward the places where your talent and the world's need overlap like sunrise meeting horizon. Consider the vocabulary of your mind, the way ideas spark like flint when you face a challenge others deem impossible. That creativity was not meant for private amusement. It is a lifeline for communities trapped in cycles of scarcity. When you invent, design, or reimagine, you act as my co-creator, translating divine possibility into tangible relief. Likewise, the empathy that makes your chest ache when you pass a homeless stranger is not a weakness to suppress, but a compass pointing toward assignments of mercy. I placed that tenderness in you because I knew there would be displaced sons and daughters longing for someone who sees them as more than statistics. In the boardroom, on the campus, along the sidewalk, wherever compassion prickles your conscience, that is where your gift must flow. Do not compare your abilities to another's, as if I lacked foresight and gave you a mismatched toolkit. Comparison blinds you to the custom fit of your own design. A surgeon's skill would frustrate a poet, and a poet's vision would derail an engineer, yet each vocation is indispensable to the symphony of solutions I am composing. My strategy is multidimensional. While one of my children litigates for justice, another paints murals that heal weary spirits, and still another cultivates sustainable farms that nourish forgotten villages. Together their offerings interlock, forming a mosaic of answered petitions. Trust that the role I assign to you is neither minor nor redundant. It carries a weight no one else can shoulder without the risk of imbalance. Perhaps you dismiss your abilities because they appear ordinary. You cook a comforting meal, you remember birthdays, you listen without glancing at a phone. Do not underestimate how profoundly a warm meal fights loneliness, how a remembered birthday reaffirms dignity, how an undivided listener becomes a mirror reflecting worth. Small deeds, infused with my purpose, ripple further than grand gestures pursued for applause. I often hide the greatest power in the simplest package, so that love, not ego, gets the credit. And yes, the gifts I gave you evolve. Seasons will pass when you feel stripped of what once defined you. An athlete faces injury, a parent becomes an empty nester, a worker retires from a lifelong career. Do not mourn as though your usefulness expired. The seed merely shifts soil. What was athletic prowess becomes coaching wisdom. What was daily caretaking becomes mentorship. What was professional expertise becomes courageous advocacy. I recycle talents the way the ocean recycles tides, pulling back only to surge forward with new momentum. When fear whispers that you are unqualified, recall that I do not hire based on resume. I empower based on calling. My spirit is the credentials stamped across every perceived deficiency. If you lean into me, practice your craft, and steward your character, I will amplify your reach beyond calculation. Partnerships will form, opportunities will surface, resources will appear at the intersection of preparation and providence. So open your hands, inventory the gifts I entrusted to you, and deploy them like seeds in fertile soil. Speak, write, code, teach, build, heal, lead, serve. Each action becomes a syllable in the sentence of deliverance I am speaking over the world through you. Never doubt that I, who authored every virtue within you, will also choreograph their influence for my glory and humanity's good. Now rise and let your gifts answer the needs I placed within your sight, for I crafted you precisely for such a time as this. Before your name was ever whispered on earth, it was declared in heaven as part of a promise I made to those who came before you. Picture the grandmother who knelt beside a creaking bed frame, her arthritic hands clasped as she pleaded for her descendants to walk in freedom she herself had never known. Envision the soldier in a foxhole who vowed through tears and gunpowder that if I would spare his life, his children would serve as peacemakers in a fractured world. Hear the sharecropper humming hymns in fields of dust, asking that future generations might taste dignity and opportunity beyond the reach of his own calloused fingers. Their petitions did not evaporate into thin air. They lodged in my heart, and I answered by weaving you into the timeline exactly when those prayers would mature. The fact that you inhale and exhale in this very era is proof that I remember every syllable uttered in faith, whether whispered in secret or shouted in desperation. Do not underestimate how powerfully your simple existence testifies to my reliability. When you walk across a graduation stage, generations who never had classrooms rejoice. When you cast a ballot, ancestors who were silenced feel vindicated. When you hold your child and speak blessings instead of curses, you overturn cycles and become living evidence that I, the covenant keeper, stay true to my word. Even your struggles confirm my faithfulness, because the grace that sustains you in hardship is the same grace your forerunners requested on your behalf. They may not have known your face, but they recognized your need, and I stored their intercession like seeds in rich soil until the appointed season of your life. You often wonder why doors swing open that you did not even knock upon, why mentors appear precisely when you need guidance, why certain dangers seem to detour around you. Those are not coincidences. They are dividends on prayers deposited decades, sometimes centuries ago. Every unmerited favor announces, "The Lord remembers." And when challenges arise, remember that you are still the embodiment of fulfilled promises, which means the outcome is secured, even if the process feels uncertain. My track record with your lineage is perfect. I did not bring you this far to abandon the narrative now. Lift your eyes and notice how your presence ignites hope in others who watched dreams die on the vine. To the elder who thought my answers were overdue, you are the arrival that proves waiting is not in vain. To the child searching for evidence that goodness is real, you stand as a breathing monument that I am both present and active. Your very vocabulary, your laughter, your resilience, they broadcast across invisible airwaves that prayers have expiration dates only when I decide they are fulfilled, and I have decided to fulfill many of them through you. Therefore, walk with a dignity that matches the weight of heritage resting on your shoulders. Let gratitude fuel your decisions, not guilt. You were never meant to feel burdened by their petitions, but propelled by them. Celebrate milestones openly, steward opportunities wisely, and testify frequently, for testimony turns latent hopes into fresh prayers for the next generation. When you speak of my deeds, you refresh the prayer cycle, inviting me to outdo myself yet again through those who will come after you. Thus, your life becomes a bridge spanning the faith of yesterday and the miracles of tomorrow, an unbroken line of assurance that I remain the same, steadfast, attentive, and true. Live then as a holy reminder that every earnest cry finds its way home to me and returns in due time, for you are the living proof that I never forget. My child, the moment you truly embrace the truth that you are, my embodied answer, a threefold awakening occurs in the chambers of your soul. First comes purpose, as sure and steady as sunrise. Confusion, which once buzzed around your mind like a swarm of gnats, begins to scatter because you finally see why your passions, scars, and opportunities converge the way they do. You realize that your job is not just employment but an embassy. Your friendships are not random but alliances. Even your hobbies carry kingdom assignment. You stop chasing every glittering possibility and instead pursue the few missions I engraved on your spirit. Decisions become clearer, not easier. Clarity rarely removes sacrifice, but the weight you feel is now the satisfying heft of destiny rather than the crushing burden of aimlessness. You wake each morning aware that your breath has an itinerary written by heaven, and you rest each night knowing that small obedience fits perfectly into an eternal storyline. Alongside purpose comes courage, the kind that does not swagger but stands. Fear will still knock at your door, but it will find no vacancy in a heart occupied by conviction. When you know you are my answer, you understand that retreat is more costly than risk, because withdrawal would silence a solution someone has been pleading for. Courage is not the absence of trembling. It is the refusal to let trembling dictate the terms of engagement. It is Peter stepping onto waves at my invitation, Esther walking into the throne room at the risk of exile, a modern activist raising her lone voice against systemic wrongs. Your courage, too, will be tailored to your arena, a father breaking generational patterns, a scientist pressing on through failed experiments, a teenager refusing the numbness of conformity. I will back your bravery with resources you cannot yet see, unexpected allies, unexplainable stamina, and wisdom timed to the very second you need it. The lion's roar you sense within is not bravado. It is my spirit announcing that heaven's authority accompanies your earthly steps. The final bloom is holy joy, a joy deeper than emotion and sturdier than circumstance. This joy is the echo of my own delight every time you lean into your ordained role. It bubbles up when you see despair lift from a neighbor's eyes because of something you did. It hums quiet hymns in hospital corridors, sings loud songs on graduation fields, and whispers comfort in solitary rooms. Even in seasons of loss, this joy persists because you measure life not by ease but by alignment. You find yourself laughing at the parts of your story that used to shame you, for you now recognize how I repurpose them into medicine for others. Gratitude becomes muscle memory, worship becomes reflex, and celebration becomes contagious. People around you feel lighter simply because your inner song teaches their hearts the chorus. Holy joy does not deny suffering, it defies its finality. It stares at brokenness and declares, "Grace gets the last word," and then invites brokenness into wholeness like sunlight inviting seeds to split open and grow. Understand that purpose, courage, and joy are not medals earned through flawless performance. They are inheritance papers activated by agreement. The moment you say yes, truly yes, to your identity as an answered prayer, the locks click open. Some days you will walk boldly into noonday assignments. Other days you will inch forward at twilight, unsure and tired. Yet each step, large or small, is traction in the right direction, and I celebrate them all. Keep your ears tuned to my voice, your heart uncluttered by comparison, and your hands willing to pour out what I keep refilling. Live in this freedom, and watch how solutions flow through you like rivers that forget they were ever dams. This is your portion, your privilege, your power, purpose to know where you are going, courage to keep going, and holy joy to relish the journey. Now step forward, for the world is waiting on the sound of your answered prayer. I am the living God who leans forward when petitions rise, and I remind you that an answered prayer is never a monument gathering dust. It is a traveler, a messenger, a force set in motion the instant I release it into time. I did not breathe my spirit into you so that you might loiter at the edge of possibility, polishing good intentions while the world waits in pain. Motion is the proof that revelation has reached the bones. Think of the prophets who felt fire in their mouths and ran to proclaim it, of the disciples who dropped their nets because love compelled a change of geography, of the abolitionists who heard the groans of the oppressed and refused to sleep until chains fell. In every era, the answers I send move through streets, halls, and homes, challenging the inertia that lets suffering linger unchallenged. Do not confuse contemplation with paralysis. Yes, there is a sacred pause where you and I converse, but pause is preparation, not permanence. I pour wisdom into your stillness so that courage may stride out of it. Once instruction is given, hesitation becomes disobedience dressed in respectable clothing. Remember Jonah, whose detour lengthened Nineveh's agony, or Moses, who argued at the burning bush while Israel toiled another day. Delay carries collateral damage. When I nudge your heart toward a conversation, mercy is already scheduled to arrive on the other person's timeline. When you falter, mercy misses its appointment. Conversely, when you act at once, send the text, write the check, cast the vote, volunteer the skill. Heaven's timetable aligns with Earth's need, and miracles meet deadlines. Movement, however, is not frantic busyness that burns you hollow. Holy motion flows from intimacy, like a river that never worries about its own source because it stays connected to the spring. Abide in me, and your actions will carry the ease of obedience rather than the exhaustion of self-manufactured urgency. You will notice the difference. Striving leaves you brittle, but spirit-led movement leaves you expanded, able to hold more compassion tomorrow than you held today. Pace yourself by listening, then spend yourself by loving. That rhythm keeps your yes sustainable and your testimony credible. My answers also carry a voice. Silence in the face of evil is not humility. It is complicity dimmed by fear. You are not called to be an unlit lamp hidden in polite corners. You are a city on a hill, vocabulary for the voiceless, megaphone for truth. When injustice boasts, let your words slice through the noise like lightning across night sky. Speak for the child whose sobs go unheard, for the widow crushed by bureaucracy, for the ecosystem gasping under greed. Words rooted in my heart destabilize powers that fancy themselves unshakable. Even a sentence offered faithfully can unseat despair and plant a new mental climate where hope can germinate. Yet speech without follow-through is a cymbal clanging off-key. After proclamation comes embodiment. If you declare reconciliation, host a meal that gathers estranged neighbors. If you preach generosity, rearrange your budget until it groans with compassion. If you champion mental health, model rest and vulnerability so that exhaustion loses its stigma. Theory finds its integrity in practice. Doctrines learn to walk by borrowing your shoes. Understand, too, that motion often invites resistance. When light advances, shadow pushes back in self-defense. Do not interpret opposition as misdirection. It is frequently confirmation that territory is being reclaimed. I will shield your purpose but not your comfort, because comfort is a poor tutor. Opposition sharpens your discernment, stretches your stamina, and furnishes testimonies that lethargy could never produce. Recall Paul and Silas, who sang in chains and catalyzed a jailbreak of souls. Their movement was physically confined yet spiritually explosive. Should prison bars or internet trolls confront you, let praise keep the hinges of your courage oiled. Finally, remember that movement is generative. The stream you initiate today becomes the river in which your children's children will sail. Someone frightened by apathy is watching you choose action and discovering that passivity is not inherited but abandoned. Each step you take writes curriculum for future faith, turning spectators into participants until nations shift. Therefore, rise at the stirring of my whisper and run with the wind of my promise. Move until valleys of dry bones rattle with life. Speak until mute dreams regain their diction. Love until indifference forgets its own name, for an answered prayer in motion is my signature upon history. My beloved, understand that influence is a contagious fire, and when you ignite with the revelation that you are my answered prayer, the sparks leap beyond the borders of your own life and set other souls ablaze. People scan the horizon daily, looking for evidence that hope is more than a fairy tale. They study faces, listen to stories, weigh motives, and calibrate their willingness to believe by what they observe. When you step forward in humility yet certainty, carrying provision where there was lack, tenderness where there was cynicism, and wisdom where there was confusion, you become a living parable that faith still works. The skeptical coworker who has silently cataloged every hypocrite suddenly pauses and reconsiders because your consistency dismantles his arguments. The weary mother who long ago shelved her dreams studies the way you steward yours and begins to dust off possibilities she thought were buried. The teenager bracing for rejection watches you disarm rooms with kindness and wonders if courage might fit her frame as well. You do not awaken these hearts merely by what you accomplish, but by the atmosphere you carry. Peace hushes panic when you walk in, because you host the assurance that I govern outcomes. Your laughter loosens chains of self-pity. Your integrity under pressure rewrites definitions of success. And your transparent repentance, when you stumble, teaches that failure is not fatal in the economy of grace. Every deliberate act of love sends ripples that collide with hidden shorelines, stirring seeds of purpose that have lain dormant under decades of doubt. Think of Lazarus in his grave. My call resurrected him, but it was the community that unwrapped his grave clothes. Likewise, your presence calls the dormant to life, and your partnership helps them discard the coverings of shame. Some you awaken will outrun you, and that must thrill you, not threaten you. A teacher who unlocks a prodigy, a sponsor who funds a visionary, a counselor who guides a survivor into leadership, each fulfills a richer legacy when successors soar higher. There is no scarcity of assignments in my kingdom. Impetus multiplies, it never divides. The grace upon you is not diminished when it spills into others. Like loaves and fish, generosity causes it to expand until multitudes are fed. Be intentional in this awakening. Speak potential aloud where the world has pronounced limitation. Tell the quiet artist you see brilliance in her sketches, the shy student that his questions reveal a mind for science, the aging neighbor that her stories are libraries waiting to be shared. When you articulate destiny, You lend vocabulary to souls who have only known labels of inadequacy. Celebration, too, is catalytic. Applaud progress loudly so that seedlings of confidence push through the soil. Correction, when necessary, should come seasoned with possibility, because people rise taller when they hear what they can become instead of only what they must avoid. Intercession is another lever. Pray specifically for eyes to open, for chains to loosen, for callings to clarify. Prayer tills the soil before your words ever land, making hearts receptive to transformation. And remember that timing matters. A seed planted in the wrong season struggles, while one sown in Kairos moments flourishes overnight. Listen closely to my spirit's cues, for I know when each heart is ripe. A gentle text at midnight, a coffee invitation after a layoff, a congratulatory note on an overlooked milestone. Such small obediences become holy junctions where destinies pivot. Do not be discouraged if results appear slow. Germination happens underground long before green shoots breach the surface. Trust my process. Keep watering with encouragement. Keep shining with authenticity, and resist the urge to coerce growth. Awakening is my miracle. Yours is to remain proximate, patient, and expectant. In time, you will witness a cascading effect. The ones you stirred will rouse still others, who will rouse more, until communities quake with purpose and nations vibrate with renewed hope. This is how revival spreads, not merely through sermons and songs, but through ordinary people living as extraordinary evidence that I still answer prayers through human lives. So walk on, radiant and unafraid, knowing each step frees captives you may never meet, yet whose chains nevertheless shatter at the echo of your faithfulness. For your yes is the fuse that lights 1,000 more.